So we're back on the roof and I've got what I consider to be my favorite two phones on the market right now. If it was my money, I now know, having lived with both of these incredible phones, I know which one I would choose. I want to know which one you would choose if it was your money on the line. Let's get into it now. Actually, just before I launch into the designs of these two incredible phones, I do want to ask you if you would consider liking and subscribing to BTX. We've recently kicked off rooftop reviews because we're not allowed out. We're in lockdown here. Hopefully you like this new format, but do let me know your comments in the section below. So then, design, let's get into this. So let's talk about the camera bump here on the S20 Ultra. It's about as subtle as a brick. It sticks out, well, the whole phone is about as subtle as a brick. It's as heavy as a brick as well at 220 grams. Even the dimensions are sort of brick-like. But it looks better than a brick. I actually really like the look, even though cosmic grey, I don't see what's cosmic about it. And okay, it's marginally more interesting than perhaps the all black finish, but the looks have grown on me somewhat. Even though this is not the mirrored slate version here on the Xperia 1 Mark II, I still think it's an absolutely stunning phone. It's only 180 grams. What are the other key differences here? 21:9, 20:9, of course. That's a big difference. We'll come on to that later when we talk about the display. Headphone jack. Absolutely love the fact that that's here. That is a big deal for a lot of people. For some people I've seen in the comments, it is a huge deal, and I completely respect the fact that Sony's put one here. We are in the middle of a thunderstorm here. We could get struck by lightning, but let's crack on. The other thing, of course, here talking about the design is there's no notch on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II. Is that a good thing? It's a fantastic thing. I really appreciate that. There isn't a notch either on the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. What we do have though is a little pinhole camera. Some people that bothers, it doesn't bother me, to be honest. I'm happy with both, although I do prefer the Sony approach here. By the way, on the whole headphone jack thing, do you remember when, it wasn't that long ago, when Samsung was ridiculing Apple because they'd done away with the headphone jack? And yet now, of course, we're talking about Samsung who's done away with it, and actually only Sony here has a headphone jack. So with these two phones then, when it comes to the display, the obvious starting point is the 21:9 aspect ratio on the Sony is very different. Now, when I first started living with this phone, I wasn't really sure about that because, well, I don't watch movies all the time. I often watch YouTube, in fact, much more than I watch movies. But what I realized is it's okay to just put it full screen because most of the time you can get away with that. And when you do, it's a really great experience. The screen is bright enough, despite what a lot of people have said. And of course, you can get it even brighter if you go into the settings. I'll just put that on the screen here. Now, when it comes to the Samsung here, I mean, this is such a stunning display. But of course, what we have here that we don't have on the Sony is 120 Hertz refresh rate. The only way to get that 120 Hertz refresh rate though is if you drop the resolution down a touch. Does that worry me? No, because it's just such an amazing display. Now, with the Sony, you don't get the option to choose if you want the higher refresh rate or if you want the 4K. I mean, it's 4K, you can't change that. Sony have got motion blurring reduction in there, or motion blur reduction. Does it work as well as 120 Hertz refresh rate? It doesn't, no. But it gets me close enough that I just don't think about it when I'm using the phone. At no point do I think, what I just did would have been smoother on this. Having said that, one of the most amazing things about this phone is if you're using, I love Samsung browser, by the way, I think it's my favorite. Samsung browser, and you've got ad blocker in there and you're scrolling through a website, it just looks amazing. There are so many points when I've used this phone and thought it doesn't get any better than this, but then that's the same here. That's why we have to try and work out which one is best. So let's talk about the speakers. Now on the Samsung here, we've got a speaker in the earpiece and a bottom firing speaker here as well. It's good, it's plenty loud. It doesn't quite have the finesse though that the Sony has. The Sony isn't really loud, but it is most definitely loud enough, but it is beautifully balanced. And the key difference here is both speakers are front facing. Both of these phones are incredibly fast, and they are enough for, I mean, I don't think I know anyone who would struggle with these phones in terms of, they're not quick enough or powerful enough. The only thing I would say though is, yes, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6, 5G, except you're not going to get 5G in the USA, unfortunately, and you will not get the Snapdragon 865 with this if you're in the UK or Europe, and that's unfortunate. It's not as big a difference as has been made out, I think, by some people, but it's something to just be aware of. So let's talk about battery life. The most important thing is, does it get you through the day and without any worries, any battery anxiety? And both of these phones achieve that with loads and loads of room to spare. 5,000 milliamp hours here, 4,000 here with the Sony. It's more than enough, no worries, whichever phone you choose. Let's talk about fast charging. It's really impressive here on the Samsung, but Sony do a very good job at making sure that your battery is looked after for the long term. Two different approaches, both have wireless charging. Again, nothing to worry about here. I don't mind the fact that we don't have the fastest charging in the world here on the Sony, because if there's more than enough to get me through the day, I'm going to stick it on charge overnight anyway, so it's fine. So let's talk about the camera tech. We have two very different approaches here. Automatic mode on the Samsung, I do prefer it. I also prefer looking back at the photos on this massive screen that's so bright, even out here in the middle of Latin America. Having said that, if you're the kind of person who takes real pride in their pictures and actually wants to get into pro mode, this is probably going to be the one for you. Again, they're two very different approaches. For what it's worth, if I had to choose, just these phones just on the cameras alone, that would be insanely difficult. I think I would choose the Sony because I personally am really interested in getting into pro mode and trying to improve as a photographer. And the way I see it is kind of like it's a bit of a challenge that Sony's given me here. BlackBerry gave us Brick Breaker, Nokia gave us Snake, and Sony's given us pro mode, and it's a lot of fun. And actually, I think I'm using my time better using pro mode on here than I would be, a game on another phone. So do you know what I mean? Now, because it's so subjective, this area, what I'm not going to do is give you a huge long kind of monologue about which I prefer and why. I'm putting these on the screen now so you can make up your own minds. But what I will say, and this is really important, we've got a massive series of camera specials lined up with these two phones, and also the best of the rest. Everything else that's on the market right now that we consider to be a contender will be going out in the city here. By the way, can you guess which city I'm in? And we will be taking loads of photographs with some really cool people. I think that's going to be a huge amount of fun. We're just waiting for the COVID-19 restrictions to be lifted, and we'll be on our way. So before I move on from the camera tech into the next section here, I just want to say that I prefer the front-facing camera here on the Samsung. It is better, there's no two ways about it in my opinion. The front-facing camera on the Sony isn't up to the standard that I would have expected. And the same is also true of automatic mode on the Sony. I think they've got it close to where it needs to be, but it's just not quite there. Could that happen in a future software update? I certainly hope so. In terms of video, both of these are absolutely excellent. We're going to put a couple of examples up on the screen here for you to see. The focusing issue is a lot better now than it was at launch here on the Samsung, as you can see. And actually, stabilization is great. Again, it's subjective. I want to know your opinion, but yeah, in terms of video, both of these are extremely competent. So before we get to the verdict and I explain which one of these I would choose with my own money, I want to give you just a very quick buyer's guide here. And what I will say is that when the deals come up for the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II here with the free headphones, earphones, that I can never remember the name of. I did this last time. Let's put them up here. That obviously makes a lot more sense because it's $1,200, £1,100. That really helps. In fact, right now, as we're recording this, Vodafone has a deal in the UK where you will get the free earphones and you'll get it in mirrored slate. which is a color I absolutely love. I mean, I definitely recommend that. Now with the Samsung, of course, because the Note 20 series has just come out, we've seen a second kind of considerable price cut here on the Samsung. Some really good deals in the UK, Europe. I've even seen in the US some good deals. Actually, for our friends in the US watching this, if you're not aware, I noticed on swapper.com some incredible deals on this phone for like barely used, immaculate looking S20 Ultras. So there are really good deals around now for both of these two phones. Well worth checking out. Okay, the rain is really closing in now. There's a reason why people don't do reviews of mobile technology on rooftops. So look, which one of these phones would I choose if it were my own money? The first thing I want to say is you cannot go wrong here. But the biggest thing to think about, in my opinion, is the sheer size, portability, maneuverability of these two phones in terms of living with them every day as a true daily driver. I did find the Samsung was just a bit too big for me and a bit too heavy to feel comfortable and confident just, using on the daily. There is something about the size, that the form factor here of this Sony, that I find so incredibly appealing. It really is a big screen phone experience, but without all the drawbacks. And I love that so much. The other thing is, I've enjoyed the Pro mode so much. I think if you have a real interest in photography and you just want to take it to the next level using your phone, this is just an extreme amount of fun, and I would recommend it on that basis alone. I adore the Samsung. I thought that this was absolutely brilliant when it came to wowing iPhone. You must know people like this. I know I do. People who insist that, Apple's the best and iPhones, you just get the new iPhone, you never think about it because they're always better. Well, I've seen iPhone owners look at this and see what it's done with taking beautiful shots of a full moon. And I've seen them well up and say, I had no idea Samsung was this good. So, I mean, this is incredible. So if it was my money, which one would I choose? It's tough. And I hope you don't give me too much of a hard time about this in the comments, but with my money, I would choose this, the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II. It's that form factor. It's so light for such a big phone. I adore the screen. I love the quality of the speakers. There's something about the way Sony does things, and I feel that so many tech reviewers just don't give Sony a fair crack of the whip, and I've never really understood why. I know that certainly everyone that's ever presented on BTech has kept a very open mind when it comes to Sony and other products. And by the way, a massive shout out to Basil, David, Gina, Jordan, Ian, all the wonderful people that we've had working on BTech over the years. They've done a terrific job. And I have to say thank you to you watching this, for liking and subscribing, and your comments. We've had so many thoughtful, kind comments as we've relaunched under incredibly difficult lockdown conditions here. Thank you so much for your ideas and suggestions on where we go from here. Anyway, so that's it. Sony Xperia 1 Mark II, I would give this 97% for what it's worth, and I would give this probably about 96. That's how close it is. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.